A communion is a coming together of people. Today, with great joy, we commune after a summer away. Since we gathered in June, much has happened. We've traveled, we've watched our flowers bloom, we've celebrated the miracle of life-giving rain, and we've celebrated birthdays, one of our longtime members, and some for our newest members. We've celebrated an engagement and the marriage of someone who used to be one of our Unitarian children, now grown up. Jane Hayashi Kim, another of our now grown-up Unitarian children, welcomed a son in July. His name is Juno. Steve, you'll remember that Steve and I did a baby welcoming ceremony for Mina, their daughter, last fall. So I look forward to perhaps doing one for Juno before long. And the most exciting news of all is that rumor has it that through the summer we have collected some newcomers. A special welcome to you. Unfortunately, not every moment of our summer was one that sparked joy. As they say, some of us faced change and challenges that come with life transitions, including declining health. We recognize the strength in that and honor it as well. Our water communion allows us to celebrate and honor the new church year and the possibilities it brings. Imagine water trickling down mountains, flowing into rivers, rivers opening out into the sea. The joining together seems to make each more sure of its way. The opening words I read by Gibran describe a river that is fearful of merging with the ocean, fearing it will disappear. It is easy to read Gibran's words as a meditation on death. He captures well the fear that is associated with the loss of self, of ego, of the unknown. What comes next, and is it to be feared? I think there's another reading of that passage, however. The ocean is where we grapple with hard questions that may not have easy answers. That vast ocean does not always provide sure-footing certainties or easy answers. Yet I hope we know that when we are together here, we feel surer of our need to search. We are in a place of trust, of care, of understanding. It is the peace that is special to this place, our sanctuary. The holiness of our space here, its beauty, its history, its echoes, offer us a renewal that sustains us throughout the week. Our water communion is not a contest to see who of us has traveled the farthest or had the most exotic vacation. Rather, I invite you to share how the water, real or symbolic, means something special to you. If you traveled, or if you merely stood as I did in my own backyard and wished for the miracle of not at all symbolic rain, it matters not. If you forgot to collect your water or left it at home, or somehow without it, but want to participate, there's water in a pitcher here that you can transubstantiate. Thank you for getting my joke. If you are new to our community, we hope that your sense of belonging begins now. First of all, we'll begin with some instrumental music that Stephen will play to give you a few moments of reflection, and then we'll begin our communion. Thank you, Stephen. Please come now as you are able and inclined to participate and share details of your lives. Don't be shy.
Go for it. Here you go, Bessie. Hey, would you like a microphone?
I'm talking? Okay. All right, so we scooped this water out of Alice's pond this morning, well, and the mud nearly drug me down. But we're having so much fun fixing up her old milk barn, and when you look out the back window of that milk barn, this water is what you see. It's a place of joy for both of us.
And the bottle was found in cleaning up the milk barn, and it says J.J. Flynn and Company, Quincy, Illinois. It's an old, it's been in there 60 years or more, but anyway, so it's Quincy, Illinois, bottle.
In June, Bob and I traveled to Yellowstone National Park. It was something that I had wanted to do at least for a long time. I'd been there as a teenager with my family. This came from Yellowstone National Park. They do a lot of recycling there. They really promote it. So they have resealable aluminum cans so that you don't just put them in landfill or whatever. They can be reused. So this is for the many rivers in Yellowstone National Park and Yellowstone Lake.
Well, I like Alice and Paul got this from, there's a creek that runs through my property. It's spring-fed. It runs into the bay. I live up on the upper bay. And it's spring-fed. It comes underneath the bluffs across the road from me. But that creek has always represented to me, it just winds through the property, but it's like the main artery that brings blood that really keeps the spirit there alive. And in the winter, since it's cold in the summer, but in the winter it's also above freezing, the water. So where it goes into the bay usually stays open unless it's extremely cold for a long time. And that's where the eagles and the pelicans and the seagulls all fish, because that's where the fish can get air. So it's pretty symbolic to me anyway.
Well, I've got symbolic water from our annual float trip, which by my best calculations, Sharon and I first went on a float trip 42, maybe 43 years ago. And now, of course, our daughter started out when she was 3 or so, when we felt she was safe to take along. And now she and her boyfriend always come along on the float trips. And the boyfriend was at first quite fearful, but now says he looks forward to it every year and has become I don't want to say he's a real water rat, but at least he enjoys the float trip more than he probably did the first year. So it's kind of a symbolic passing of the torch through the generations, I guess.
The Powder River of the Bighorn National Forest has a tributary that flows into the Crazy Woman Canyon. And right now that tributary water is shallow and sluggish, but in the springtime, the snow melt flows down the mountain and into the river, and it makes the water crash over the boulders in this roar that you have to shout to be heard over, and it crashes over the boulders and creates these white caps, and it's powerful, and it's beautiful, and I feel reverence there. And it was one of my brother's favorite destinations, and there was no question that we would scatter his ashes there. So this water is for the mountains of Wyoming, it's canyons, it's water, and my brother who is part of all of that.
About 20 years ago, there you go. About 20 years ago, Mick and I dug out a couple of little ponds just outside our patio when we had our renovation done, extension put on the house. So this is from the 2 frog ponds, which provides homes for all the cute little frogs that come and sing to me in the springtime. Make me so happy. I don't know how to hold this. I think I can talk where you can hear me. Can you hear me? No? Okay. I knew as soon as I heard about the communion that I would have to get water from my sister's house. My sister, her name is Jewel, and she is. She's the best person I have ever known in my life. I lived away from Quincy for 40 years, but we were as close as people that would live next door. We never, ever let that drop. She has been the most important person in my entire life. I went by her house. I never come to town that I don't stop for coffee. I never come to town that I don't see her. So I went this morning, and we're outside having coffee, and I stay, and I get in my car, and I see, oh, I stayed too long, and I forgot my water from her house. So this is from the kitchen. Anyway, she really, truly is the best person I've ever known in my life.
Water is, always has been, and always will be my element. I spent much of my childhood playing in the Atlantic Ocean in Florida, and I couldn't go to Florida this summer, so this isn't Florida water. But I got to thinking, I went to Georgia last weekend. I didn't get any water there, but that's okay. Georgia water is not all that special to me anyway. And I got to thinking I could bring water and pretend that was from the Atlantic Ocean. But then it occurred to me, one of my favorite places since I've moved to Quincy has been along the river. So this water comes from Quincy Bay.
This water means a lot to me because it tells me how much my parents cared about me. Both farms, in fact, the one farm still does not have city water, which means Liberty, Illinois water. And it's from 1857. But when I moved to the farm, my dad made sure that I got city water, and that was in the 1990s. So I just think it's kind of indicative of how parents are, things that they won't do for themselves or things that grandparents won't do for themselves, they'll do for their kids. So, to city water from Liberty.
Well, I have some water that's from the tap at Four Winds Farm. So I thought, well, that's kind of boring. So I went out and gathered the flowers today, and I had water in the container, and I used that water because I thought that it has a little bit of essence of all the thousands of flowers that I have. And I'm very thankful this summer, as most of you know, it was really, really dry. So I'm thankful to have city water.
I also brought tap water from home, but it was really, I had this overwhelming feeling of fondness and nostalgia for last year. Because last year I brought water from my tap when we had just moved in, and this was my first ever church ceremony ever, period. And I had no idea how much of a family that this church was going to become for me, and how, involved in this community I was going to be. And I put it in a jar of Liz's, which is especially meaningful because this is also how I met Liz, who now is such an amazing part of my life and who I'm so grateful for. So big morning for gratefulness for me.
So, as many of you know, I grew up on a lake in Minnesota, so water has always been part of my life. And this summer, I have a tiny vial, symbolically, from vast oceans of water, large lakes. The Fingerling Lakes in New York. I went to Seneca Falls for the Here at Women ERA Centennial Convention, and I always wanted to go to Seneca, so that water is very special to me. The other water is from Minnesota, where I was recently bobbing in the waters of a particular lake, Lake Mary. So water, I need to be by water, even if it's Siloam Springs or wherever it is. It's just really comforts you and brings you back to nature in a different way than trees, et cetera, do for me. So.
Some of you may know, every summer my college roommates, on the guys on the rugby team and the guys in the dormitory that made all the trouble on campus, we get together in the mountains. One of my friends has a cabin around Sonora. It's in the Sierras, and every night we sleep in this outdoor environment, and the Stanislaus River goes by. And so I thought I would bring some water from the Stanislaus River in Sierras, California.
I had a really candid summer, just kind of tended my garden. And I don't know why when you get old it's fun to pull weeds. And 20 years ago I couldn't tell you what a rhododendron was, but this is from our really bourgeois fountain in the back. But I want you to understand, raccoons wash their food in it, the birds play in it, and even the hummingbirds come and drink out of it.
This is just from our faucet, but from our filtered faucet, which I'm very grateful for. I had forgotten all about this service until I read the newsletter, and I thought, oh, I could have brought water from California, but actually this year has been all about rooting, and this was our first service. Last year we didn't even know this was happening, so we just sort of hid over there while everyone poured water in, and so now we get to participate, and feeling very, very grateful for this place and you people. Good job. Take your water shot. Do you want to hand this to Mike when he comes? There he is. He's coming right there. Go to. Are you feeling shy? I'll go with you. You don't have to be shy, Mike.
This bottle of water was waiting for us in a hotel room in New York City last week.
And the water in the bottle came from the Aurora restaurant in Brooklyn, New York, which was the venue where our daughter Laura got married a week ago today.
I traveled about 5 weeks this summer and didn't bring water from those places. This is from my tap this morning, and it symbolizes that all the waters that I drank as I traveled. This water is a part, it's all connected, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to be home in my life to resettle and redefine different directions that I may be going. So this is that water.
Anyone else? Taylor, could you check if someone is on Zoom who might like
Yeah,
to?
can I do one though?
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
I thought you were headed up
I was
here.
waiting my turn.
Yeah.
I'm going to use symbolic water. This summer, my good friend Sierra, who some of you may know, and I did what we called Side Quest Summer. We went to everything we could go to as long as the tickets were under $45 and we could do it in a day. So we went to probably a dozen different weird events this summer, from underground metal concerts to an international food festival. And I don't know if you know this, they don't sell bottled water anymore. They only sell canned water. And it is impossible to get a can of water that has been opened and drank from back, and they're $5, so I'm gonna drink most of that water. So I do not have any of the water from any of these events, but we had an awesome summer, and I'm such a homebody, so it was a great way to get out and do things instead of just sit at home and be sad. So, and now I'll check Zoom.
Anybody online who cares to participate?
Okay, Georgia said, my virtual water offering is from the bog on my son Dale's land. It teems with life, microscopic, and important to all which lives. And I think that is all we got, but I will give her. This is for you, Georgia. Think we're all good?
Is she some? I thought I heard someone speaking, so it's not Georgia.
Nope.
Okay.
Just me.
Okay. Our coming together after the summer is symbolized by the water in our vessel. The water will go outside to nourish one of our memorial trees. We bring life-giving water not only to honor the memory of others, but also to show our reverence for the natural world. One tree out there is in memory of Andrew Matheson, Carol and Bob's son, a gift from his godparents, John and Jean Sperry. And the other one, a Canadian red cherry, was a gift in 1999 from Sandy and Ted Morrison. The trees now memorials to all of them. Our spirits flow on in endless song. Our communion brings us symbolically together into an intentional community of individuals who are guided by principles. They are the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement in spiritual growth to our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and finally, the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are all a part. Perhaps it is not too much to say that we are a utopian group, believers in what may be thought to be impossible ideals. For some utopian experiments, their idealism was the seeds of their destruction. Yet Unitarianism has proven by its long history to have staying power. And our church in Quincy has for a long, long time been a beacon of liberal thinking, open-mindedness, and a place where all are welcome in their search. We are made stronger when we know we have companions, a community of like souls on the journey. As we gather today in our new church year, it is good to hear the principles spoken again, and I think it is especially good to know of the people with whom you shared your communion today that we are united by those common commitments for a better world. we do share a fundamental understanding of what's essential. Much seems out of kilter with the world right now, and it does seem that the ascendancy of the irrational is especially vexing. Thus, we need each other more than ever. Our work may sometimes be quiet and small. It is a work in progress. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Today, we commemorate the formal beginning of the new church year, and in doing so, we reaffirm our goals and our principles. As someone who spent most of my life in the classroom on one side of the desk or the other, the beginning of the new school year always brings excitement to me. We come together here to learn as well. Steve and I look forward to being with you for this year. We look forward to thinking with you about some of the complications in the lives we lead. There's plenty to talk over. And we look forward to further discussions about the ways that our principles can guide us. But for today, our communion is reason enough to celebrate. When we work together, the way looks clearer, the flow gets stronger, and I can invite you in. The water is fine.